Hello and welcome to Yes, You Are Brave. This is a podcast where we are going to set off on a journey together to find and build our brave, where we explore all the ways that you have been brave and all the ways that you can be brave again. Because even though we may have forgotten or we may have fallen out of practice, we're all brave. And I'm on a mission to prove it and help you believe that yes, you are brave. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Yes, You Are Brave. I'm Pawnee, I'm your host, and I am super glad that you are here today. So let's talk brave, shall we? So a while back, I was on Facebook and somebody from my hometown made a comment about how beautiful the fields of gold were or something like that down in New Mexico. And it really struck me because I knew, being from that area, that what she was talking about was basically a field of weeds, if we're being honest, because that particular part of New Mexico does not have a lot of water. And when things bloom, they're usually sometimes it's sunflowers, but a lot of times it's weeds. And I thought how awesome that was, though, that instead of looking at it as a field of weeds, that she looked at it as a field of gold. And she was like, this is just so pretty and so beautiful. And she made the choice to see the beauty instead of the weeds. Now, I'm not exactly sure which fields she was talking about or whatever, but it really struck me that we have the choice to choose what we see. Choose how we see things. And I thought, what a brave way to live your life, seeing the beauty instead of seeing the weeds. Because let's face it, this world is full of weeds. This world is full of things that are not always great, that are not always fun. It's very easy to get caught up in seeing the bad. It's very easy to get caught up in seeing all the things that are going wrong. But I also truly believe that you find what you look for. So if we look for the good, we're going to find the good. If we look for the bad, that is exactly what we are going to find. So let's talk a little bit about how we look for the good instead of the bad, how we find those good things and focus on the good and bring those into our lives instead of just calling all the bad things and making that be our focus for all the time. Let's dive into that. All right, so the first thing that I want to talk about how we see the field of gold and see it as beautiful instead of a field of weeds. And the first thing I want to talk about is that you got to realize that you have a choice. I know that there are a lot of people that feel like they're just going through life and their life is what it is, and they have no way to change that. They just have to accept it, and that's how they live their life. Like they have no choice. And I've done this before, I've said this before, but I want to call BS on that because I think that we all need to realize, we need to wake up that we do have a choice. Most of our lives are dependent on us choosing to actually live them and choosing how we live and choosing how we see things. And our perspective on weeds or gold is no different than anything else. We have to realize that we have a choice. We can see the beauty in things if we choose. It's all in what we look for. It's all in the perspective we choose to adopt. And we do have the choice to adopt a positive outlook and a positive perspective and to look for gold instead of weeds, because we will find what you look for. The next thing I want to talk about a little bit is being grateful. Now, I know that lots has been said about this, and it is one of those things that I feel like I hate when people talk about it sometimes because it's hard to be grateful. It really is. And it sounds sometimes I think people dismiss it as like it's a very churchy thing, and I'm not a churchy person. But there's been lots of research done completely away from any kind of church that talks about how gratitude is such an amazing way to to improve your life. And it has been shown by study after study, scientific study after study, that it is one of the biggest things that can change your life the quickest and the easiest by showing gratitude. Okay, and I realize that being grateful is not always easy as well. It's really easy to think about, and to focus in on all the things we don't have instead of the things that we do. But I think that there is a lot more, we have a lot more than we realize. And when we start looking for the good in what we have, it really does make a huge difference in our lives and can really be the thing that changes everything for us. So a few years ago, back when I was still teaching, I had the opportunity to go on a trip, a couple of trips actually, but this particular trip, it was a dream come true. I was going to Africa and I was super duper excited. I was going with Global Education Allies, which is a group of teachers that I traveled with, and we were going to Rwanda, and then we were going to go to Uganda. And of course, because it was an education trip, we were going to be spending quite a bit of time in schools, and I was really excited about that. I'd traveled with them before, but when I left, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I was a little bit frustrated as a teacher because I felt like I just didn't have the resources that I needed, and I felt like things were not what they should be, right? I was very much looking at all the weeds in my situation. And so when I left for Africa, I will be also honest, I thought I knew what to expect. I thought I had a pretty good idea of what to expect. And I thought that people had kind of exaggerated Africa. I was like, there's no way it can be as bad or as the way that it's portrayed all the time. I just thought that had to be wrong, that they were taking some of the extreme circumstances and making them feel like the norm. Well, we got off the plane after about 30 hours of travel, approximately 24 hours in the air, and we were picked up at the airport in Kigali. And of course, we drove through Kigali, and it was just one of those surreal things of like looking out the window, thinking every once in a while, reminding yourself, I'm in Africa, like this is happening. And for the next month, actually, I was there for a month, I got to see what it was like in Africa, in real places. And I realized that I had been wrong, but I also realized how gratitude can make a huge, huge difference. Like I said, we spent some time in schools, and I went into a number of classrooms in different places over there. We went to this one school and we spent the afternoon there, and we walked into this classroom where we were going to be teaching this lesson, and the list of resources for that classroom, there was a classroom, the classroom itself, there was the building, yes. You went inside, there were desks, there was a chalkboard, and there was a piece of chalk, and that was it. There was no electricity in that building. There were windows that were open to give light into the room, but there was no glass in the windows. They were just shutters that opened to give light to the classroom. And I said that there were desks. They were those simple wooden desks, and there were literally 3 teenagers to a desk. They were not big desks at all. They might have been close to maybe 3 feet wide. And it was interesting to me in that moment, in that experience, realizing just how much I had as a teacher. Now, my classroom was not by no means fancy, but I had electricity, I had a whiteboard, I had a projector, I had a computer to use that I could hook up to the projector. I also had like a document cam that I could use as well. I had, the kids all had pens and pencils, and I had pens and pencils. I could loan them. I had a copy room just down the hall that I could make copies. There was all of a sudden, my teaching setting seemed so grand, I guess. And like I had so many resources, and it just I went back into that next school year being so grateful for what I had and being like, okay, this is actually not that bad. I have what I need to help these kids learn. I mean, yes, could it be better? Yes, it could be way better, but it is way better than it could be. So gratitude can change our whole attitude. It can change our whole lives. And I've had different times in my life where I've made a specific effort to be grateful, and it has completely changed everything. And I challenge you to do that, to be grateful, to realize that you can change, you do have a choice, and that you can change, and being grateful is one of the easiest, fastest ways to do that. And I say easy, it's not really super easy, but it is totally worth it, and you find what you look for. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of how we learn and we develop the skill of seeing the gold instead of just the weeds is to slow down in just in general, and also to be slow to judge and to be slow to just dismiss things, just to kind of slow down. So a couple of years ago, we were getting ready to, we moved 3 hours south of where we were. I was with my sister and her family, and they decided to move, and I decided to come with them. And as we got down here where we are currently living, it's the desert, and most places, most houses and things like that, at least the front yard, is partially, if not completely, the landscaping is a lot of times is rocks. That's just something that is used down here because there's not a lot of water. Anyway, and so when we got here and we were trying to get the house set up, things like that, my poor little nieces had been so good in the move, but there's just things that like we needed to do as adults that like they couldn't really help moving furniture and things like that. And so one of the things that when we got here, of course, the front yard of the house that we bought has a little patch of grass, but then it's mostly rocks. And so one day my sister, she pulled one of my nieces. She says, hey, come look at this really cool rock that I found. Now, the rocks that we have in our front yard, they're just a very generic blend of rocks. But here's the thing about where I live in southern Utah is that there are lots of old mines. They used to mine a lot down here. And so even your most basic rocks down here are like, if you look really closely, you can find some really cool rocks in there. Like I said, ours is just a very basic, kind of generic mix of rocks, but we have found some really cool rocks out in our yard. And so this started a kind of a hobby for my niece. At first, it was just a way to keep her busy and a way to just keep her distracted, so that we could do a few things. And now we're all looking for rocks. Like all of us, all the time, it's like, oh, hey, look, I found this really cool rock for you. And she's got a ridiculous rock collection. But in slowing down and just actually looking, you can find some really amazing things. And I also take a walk around the neighborhood every day with my dog, because that's what you do when you have a dog. And I have noticed walking past these same houses every day, you know, you look down at the rocks and you can see some really cool things and some really cool rocks. Ones that sparkle, ones that have things inside of them, ones that are like 2 or 3 different colors. There are some rocks in a neighbor's yard not too far from our house that are like straight up purple. And there are some that like have like they're pink and they're green, and it's kind of amazing. There's some really cool, awesome rocks around, and they also have like lots of like rock shows and things down here, and people make jewelry out of rocks, which are really, really cool. But in order to see those really cool rocks, you got to slow down, and you got to be willing to see that, and you got to not be so judgy so quickly. And I think that that's how one of the biggest things is how we see gold, a field of beautiful gold instead of just a bunch of weeds. Because a lot of times that field of gold is going to just be weeds. but we can see it as weeds or we can see it as beautiful. The choice is really up to us, and it is a choice. Our attitude and how we decide to see things really is up to us. We maybe can't change the entire world, but we can change our world by changing the way that we see it. We really, truly can. And those beautiful moments are what's going to make life totally worth living. It's going to make it worth living. It's going to make it worth the effort. So my challenge to you today is, and for this week, is to choose to see the gold. Choose to see the beauty around you in the world instead of just the weeds. Make a conscious effort to see what's beautiful and to see what's around you, realizing that you have a choice. It's up to you how you see the world and how you interpret what you see in the world. That is totally, completely within your control. Also, make an effort to be grateful, because that is going to be so huge and it's going to change everything for you for the better. And lastly, just to slow down. Slow down and appreciate what's there. Slow down. Don't be so quick to dismiss things and to judge things, and just enjoy life and the beautiful things that it has to offer. If you do those things, you will be able to see the gold instead of just the weeds, and life will be more pleasant. It's not going to be perfect and it's not going to magically fix everything, but there will be more moments of peace and beauty, and that will make the difficult moments easier to get through. So remember that you are amazing and you're wonderful and you are worth all the effort that it may take to adjust your attitude, to see the abundance in the world instead of the lack, to see the beauty instead of the weeds. But you can do it. You can. You're amazing. You're awesome. And yes, you are brave. Yes, you're brave enough to see the gold instead of the weeds. Have a fantastical day.
Thanks for listening, and if you enjoyed what you've heard today, please leave a review down below and share this with anyone that you feel like could use a little more brave in their life. And if you'd like to follow more of my journey to be brave, you can follow me on social media and link down below. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to be brave.